I've received a lot of comments lately that have made me want to address this issue about what Americans really are getting wrong about self sufficiency that the rest of the world seems to understand, or a lot of the world seems to understand, and a lot of Americans have a hard time understanding what true self sufficiency looks like. I have brought up a lot about how our system in the US is very controlling, and we rely on these systems in order to meet our most basic needs. And we need to get back to being more self reliant and not relying on the grocery stores to provide us food, and learning how to grow our own food and how to do things that support our very basic survival skills, as far as how to stay warm, how to build things, and just be able to meet our daily basic needs in a self sufficient way where we are not relying on systems that can take those things away from us. So, a lot of the comments that I get are just kind of like not everyone can go and live off grid and grow all their own food and do all the things for themselves in order to be self sufficient. That is where the American individualistic mindset is the problem. The point of self sufficiency is about having self sufficient communities. People are social creatures, and not being totally and completely independent on your own. You have to rely on other people, you have to rely on your community in order to be truly self sufficient. The goal is really to create a smaller system so that we can be self reliant within a smaller community. So right now I'm in Albania, and we're in a city in Albania. These people here will never go hungry because of something that the government cannot control them to the point to where they couldn't be able to feed themselves, even in the city, because the way that they get food is not getting food from these major corporations, and they don't go to Walmart, they don't go to Publix or Winn-Dixie or whatever the grocery store is that you go to that is corporately owned. I'm guaranteeing you that the grocery store you go to is not a small business. It's not a, little mom and pop store, and the food doesn't come from the village right outside the city. That's where these people get their food. Nearly all of their food comes from farmers just within Albania, and a lot of times right outside the city. So these people are providing for themselves and not relying on corporations, and nobody can control and take away their food. It is continuing to get worse and worse in the US as far as red tape and rules and regulations. This is not a political thing either, just so we're all clear. This is everybody is being affected by this, and we are being divided to the point to where it's us versus them. And on this, most people, 99% of people in the United States fall into this category of they're being controlled by the food system, and they're not wealthy enough to like pay $100 for a carton of eggs if that's how high the prices rise, just whatever. And it's not just in Albania that it's like this. This is the system in most of the world, most of the, Vietnam and Thailand and all of these other places that we visited. They don't rely on corporations for their food. They can take care of themselves. And it's not that all of these people are growing all of their own food for themselves in their on their homestead. That's the way it works in the United States. When you think of self-sufficiency, that's what you think of. Owning a homestead and several acres and being able to grow all of your own food. That is not what we need to look towards for self sufficiency. It's about building communities. And in order to do that, we have to be able to trust each other, to not be so divided, to understand that we're all on the same team and want the same things. And we would all be better for that. That is what it's going to take to be truly self-sufficient, is to get out of the deeply ingrained individualistic mindset that is used to control us, and to start coming together and building communities. And all of this isn't going to happen overnight. It's about little small changes that you can make every single day to make connections with people. And we are going to have to like reconnect with each other again because we've lost that connection. There was also another amazing comment that one of you guys have created a farm stand where you sell the produce, very affordably. Not your goal is not profit, it is to, provide for your community at a very affordable price and serve your community and be a member of the community and trade and barter. She wasn't even selling everything. She was bartering with people in her community. And that's what we need more of. And everybody has something that they can provide other people to be helpful to other people. And that's what we just need to focus on is what can I do to help those around me? And I want to say I'm saying this as a very introverted person who prefers to be alone most of the time. You don't have to be super social. I'm not super social. I don't want to go hang out and have parties and like super talk to my neighbors or anything like that. But as humans, as social creatures who live in communities, that is what we still need to be community minded and helpful and part of a community. That is still very important. You don't have to, want to sit on the front porch and talk to all of your neighbors or anything like that. There's lots of cool things that you can do self-sufficiency wise where you're by yourself 95% of the time, but are still providing value to the people around you. That would be my ideal situation. So the US has made it really hard to be able to have small businesses. Even farmers markets are very expensive because of all of the regulations and red tape that these farmers have to go through in order to be able to sell their stuff at the farmers market. You can't buy raw milk. You can't, do all of these things without spending a lot of money in order to get that accreditation that your food is safe and whatever, which that can be beneficial. I understand the benefit in that. But at the same time, there's still listeria outbreaks and salmonella outbreaks, and they're still putting chemicals in our food that is not healthy for us. I read another comment. You guys are awesome. Thank you for commenting. But another comment I got is the awareness that the politicians right now are saying that they're going to take the harmful ingredients out of their food. But we need to turn it around and realize that they're putting harmful ingredients in our food. It is allowed for them to do that. That is what's being marketed to us. Most of our food in the US is not real food. It's ultra processed with very unhealthy ingredients in it. It's not what we need to eat, which is a whole nother topic. And I talk about this all the time that I'm going to do a video on it. But there's just so much to say. And my opinion is, I have a lot of opinion on it. But our food in the US is not healthy anyway. So, like, what's the point of all of these regulations? It's still way healthier to eat real food, even if there is a slight risk that there could be, I don't know, like listeria in the food that you're eating from the farmer next door. Like, it just is so overregulated when it's not even good to begin with. It really makes someone wonder if the regulations and red tape and all of this stuff is not just another form of control in order to make it harder for small farmers, small businesses, local people, communities to support each other, support themselves versus relying on corporations and profit hungry people. It's just a control thing. It is, whether it's intentional or not is irrelevant, kind of. I mean, it is relevant. But the fact is that it is making it harder for the individual and small communities to be self-sufficient. And it's making us rely on these corporations more and more and more. And to be clear, I'm still learning all of these things. These are experiences that I have had traveling around the world and things that I have seen and noticed within other cultures and communities and how they are thriving. We think of these places as less economically advanced, than the US, but really the people here are much more economically secure than many people in America. It is Americans hear that they are the greatest country in the world and that nowhere else is better than the USA. But then when you go and you travel to these other places and you see how these other people are living and you experience their cultures, you realize that that is not true. That these people are sure there's struggles, sure they don't make the same amount of money, and sure they have financial hardships and all of that stuff too. It's not this idealistic world or anything, but they're not worse than the US. The US is not better off than these places, especially if you're coming from a lower income area in the US, especially if you're part of the 50% of Americans that own 2% of the wealth. Sure, there's pockets of people in the US who are doing awesome and amazing, and there's people who are upper middle class that are wasting their money on materialistic frivolous things, but 50% of the people in the US are struggling and are not wasting their money and are just trying to survive and don't have the community support that these other countries have. And we have got to wake up and figure it out, come together and make changes. That's how we're going to make changes. We have to realize what the real problem is, who the real problem is, and work together to find a solution. There's no big fix. You can't fix the entire system as an individual. You can only make individual changes and fix yourself, and slowly things will change and things will get better if more and more people wake up and start doing that too. Thank you guys so much for always adding such amazing comments to the videos. I really appreciate it. I really enjoy reading everybody's comments and I learn a lot from a lot of them. So, anyway, as always, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will talk to you next time.